Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I am Kyle, and I am glad you're listening today. You know, we started a new segment on the show. We introduced it last episode, and we're identifying a category in each episode. And then each of us are going to pick one thing that resonates with us. So today we've chosen helpful tools. Something that helps you in your everyday life. And Sean, it's up first.
I've started getting a little more intentional with a daily and weekly calendar. So not just a planner that looks at the month, but one that breaks down every day. And I have found this to be helpful in keeping me on track and helping me stay focused on what I've identified as important, right? And that's in all areas, whether it's going to the gym 5 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever it may be, or getting to bed on time, connecting with friends here and there.
Yeah.
That calendar has really helped me be intentional about the time I spend in every area of my life.
So I use a monthly one like everybody else. And, you know, the thing that makes me hesitate or that I think about the daily and weekly is what happens when there's changes. I mean, in a day, you know, there's sometimes 3 or 4 changes in your schedule just based on stuff that happens, right? So how do you handle that in the daily calendar?
So it's definitely important to remain flexible, especially when it comes to rare disease, probably. It's important to remain gracious with yourself. So I typically map out my week on Sunday night. I'm off Sundays, typically I'm off Monday, so it gives me a little bit of time to take a look at my calendar, what the plan is for the week. But I also don't beat myself up.
Right.
If I say I'm going to the gym on Tuesday, but then I don't sleep well Monday and things kind of fall off the rails on Tuesday morning or whatever. The way I've dealt with it is leaving myself some flexibility to where, okay, if I have to skip Tuesday, but I had already planned on skipping Thursday, I just rearranged the priority. So I still get done, you know, whether it's editing the podcast or writing my column or having dinner with a friend, I just try to rearrange whatever I can. So I'm still getting the same stuff done. Typically, it just may not be in the same time frame or the same day. And although it's a constant juggle, what's most important is remaining gracious with yourself, you know, not beating yourself up if you don't get everything done.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, and I would challenge you to try it, or even our listeners, I'm willing to bet, whether it's you or me or anybody, when you map out every day, you probably get more done than if you just map out the month. You might still miss stuff. It's never going to be perfect science, you know, things come up. But I'm willing to bet I've gotten more done when I've mapped it all out than when I just think, going to the week saying, oh, I'll get these 10 things done at some point.
Yeah. I don't know if Bill Gates said it or something, but people I don't even know if this applies, but people underestimate what they can get done in a year, and they overestimate what they can get done in 10 years. Is that I don't know.
You know, I'm not sure
Let's forget that.
What you're thinking, but if Bill Gates were to hear this, I feel like he'd be disappointed. Either A, because he never said it, or B, because you totally botched it up. But hey, we'll go with it. So do it. Try it. Map it out and see how much you can get done, or how focused you end up being in those moments of, quote unquote downtime. Kyle, what's your helpful tool right now?
During the winter, I prepare myself for the cycling season and try and stay active. And it's particularly difficult since I've been in Pennsylvania. I've been here for over 10 years, but it's still every winter is a pain in the butt. You just can't go outside, right? Yeah. And ride or do anything. And I've been riding my stationary trainer inside for a long time. But a couple years ago, I discovered the MyZone app through my friend Jesse Thomas, who is a personal trainer. And he recommended this heart rate monitor that connects to an app. And I've been using it specifically on my indoor workouts. And I did not realize how much my intensity was lacking in my indoor workouts until I could see it real time. And it connects to my phone and I can see what my heart rate is in real time. And it tells me if I need to put more effort or, take it down a notch or whatever it is in real time. And that's really increased the intensity of my workouts at home.
Yeah, I can see that. It's the same principle of, weekly rhythm register or the weekly planning. If you don't know where you're at or you don't know your score, how do you know what to work on? So I love that idea of keeping an eye on that so you know when to push a little harder or when to back off a little bit. That sounds like an incredible tool to lean on, especially during your workouts.
Yeah, it's really up my game during the winter, which ups my game, when cycling season comes around. So, yeah, it's been great.
And so, my question with the heart rate monitor, I assume that means you wear a chest band of sorts?
That's correct.
And it connects to your phone?
Yeah, there's a thing called Bluetooth. And
you're telling me there's a thing called Bluetooth. Because I was wondering if you knew how that works. For those folks who are behind, I will encourage you to go back to episode 151 and get a lesson in Bluetooth. But let's move on, Kyle. Last episode you mentioned Adam Carolla. He often goes on these rants about things that bug him.
Right. Yep.
And I would assume every now and then it's a business or a product or a service that bugs him. And I'm sure we all are familiar with platforms like Yelp or feedback on Facebook or all these different elements that now exist today for kind of calling out bad practice, whether it be a business or a service or an individual, whatever it may be. And we've talked quite a bit lately, especially about my gym and different, airlines. Those have come up quite a bit over the years in terms of how they handle wheelchairs or luggage or whatever it may be. So I thought it might be interesting to just dialogue with each other about how social media has influenced change in our society or how it's affected change. Whether sometimes, hopefully, most of the time, for better. Sometimes, maybe for worse. But I thought it might be kind of fun to just chat about how that's impacted our world.
One thing that comes to mind for me is I talked about a couple seasons ago that I tweeted Southwest Airlines right before I was about to get on a flight. They tweeted me back and then they sent me a care package just for, I don't even remember what the issue was. And I don't think it was a big deal, but anyway, they're just like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Here's some cool stuff, whatever it was. And, I think that social media has opened the dialogue. I would never have 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to directly reach them, right, and start some kind of dialogue. So I think in that respect, it's, a really positive thing. And with anything, it's just how you use it, I guess, right?
Yeah, and with that in mind, how you use it, I want to set up a little bit of two sides of the coin, right? There are some people that argue, we'll just say Yelp. Yelp's kind of the big one. They were, I feel like, one of the original platforms where you could give reviews on business or service. So we'll just pick on them. Although when I say Yelp, I'm talking about the broader influence, not just that particular app or service. Some people argue that Yelp and things similar is an unfair way to help the company get better. Like, it's just a unfair use. You put them on blast, you degrade them because of one negative instance or one negative employee or whatever it may be. And I get that. But then, of course, on the other side, the argument is, if we didn't sort of air out their dirty laundry for them, their laundry would never get done. So
Right.
there's both takes, and I'm wondering right off the bat, Kyle, what is your opinion on both? Or do you lean one way or the other? Do you think Yelp can be unfair, or things like Yelp, or do you think they are the best thing since sliced bread?
I think ultimately it's very useful. I mean, it's the first thing any of us look at. Like on Amazon, for example, you're looking for a product. The first thing you look at is how many stars does it have, right? And that's all customer reviews. I also know that, if somebody has an axe to grind, they're going to take it to forums like that, And so I think you have to monitor yourself when you're reading reviews to kind of try to understand the motives beyond. I feel like it's kind of clear a lot of times if somebody has an axe to grind.
Yeah. The reviews I found to be most helpful, or the ones I trust, are ones where they highlight good and bad, or positive and negative.
Yeah.
And so they might mention, oh, the food was really good and this dish was perfect, but the service was, the server was rude, or the the bread was stale, or whatever. So when there's a little bit of both, I feel like, okay, that's probably a level-headed individual who's just giving some honest feedback. When they have an axe to grind, you can probably tell in the first sentence, they are furious, and there is no
Totally.
fixing it, no making it right. And one thing I've loved that you mentioned about Southwest, I have found that to be powerful when communicating with large companies like that, especially on Twitter. I've tweeted concerns to probably all the airlines I've been on, and they respond right away. And even though they may not send me a care package, just simply the moment to say sorry, or the moment to explain why a certain policy exists, is informative and in a sense helpful. I may not agree, and I might still be a little perturbed about it, but at least I understand. And at the very least, I got their attention for a moment. So I guess what I understand about the argument that Yelp or social media negative feedback isn't fair is when somebody takes their issue straight to social media in an attempt to quote unquote cancel that particular brand or service. So there are two sides of cancel culture too, right? One is to hold accountability, which is the element that I am a fan of. And the other side of the coin is to attempt to change or hide or eliminate because of something that happened in the past. So, an extreme example, for the sake of remaining politically correct, I'll just say person A is 55 years old and is running for public office.
Okay.
But somebody digs up some negative story that person A was a part of when person A was 16 years old. And wanting to utilize that story from 40 years ago to cause them to lose the race or to be quote unquote canceled. To me, that's kind of extreme and unfair, depending on what the infraction was. Some infractions are unforgivable, I guess, or kind of a big deal. Some are, like, stupid. So, to me, that side of cancel culture I do struggle with here and there. But when it comes to holding accountability, we would never be able to hold the kind of accountability we can today if it wasn't for social media. A lot of us kind of roll through a red light when making that right turn because we can easily get away with it. If there's a camera at that particular intersection, we probably don't do that.
Yeah.
So in a sense, the cameras or social media helps us do the right thing.
Right.
Even when there isn't a cop at the corner.
Right.
So in a sense, I've come to appreciate social media because really it just helps hold us accountable, especially when you think about large companies like a Southwest or a Delta or a 24-Hour Fitness, right? I'm one little passenger, one little member, and my disappointment probably isn't going to cause them to change their mind or change their practice unless 10, 20, 30,000 people on social media also voice their opinion in the same regard.
It gets out of hand when one person thinks that they can take the place of the police or who, the enforcement agency, and they have deputized themselves, right, without those 10 or 20,000 people behind them. I think that's where it gets out of hand.
I did that for a minute. In terms of disabled parking spot, I'd see a car parked in a disabled spot with no placard, no license, and I immediately jumped to the conclusion that they're just tying up the spot because it's the closest one, right? And my blood would boil, and I'd scowl at the car, and I'd look at it and squint and, raise my fist or whatever.
You pull out your keys and just...
Yeah, one time, a side note, I took a photo, kind of blatantly pulled out my phone and took a photo of a car. And there was somebody in the back seat that I don't think I knew they were there. And he just kind of rolled down the window yelling at me like, don't you take a picture of my car. And of course in my head I'm like, why can't I take a photo of your car? But I took a photo just to sort of kind of poke at them. So I guess maybe I did know they were sitting there. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But as I walked away, I thought to myself, what does that person think I'm going to do with the photo? It's not like I can enforce the law. What am I'm going to call the sheriff and be like, hey, right now, there's somebody in this parking lot without a placard. Come and give them a ticket. Like, in a sense, the photo was really just a tactic to rub them wrong. Wasn't like I could do anything about it. But now, I don't do that anymore because I realized myself, I have parked in those spots dozens of times and forgot to hang my placard. So how many times have people walked by my car and said, oh, that little twerp. And then before I was using the stroller or Sorry, not stroller. Before I was using my rollator.
Who pushes your stroller?
Yeah, right? I just kick like Flintstone style. Before I was using that, how many times would people watch me and not think I was disabled or not realize I was disabled and just think I was being a jerk tying up the spot? So now I'm less likely to jump to that judgment because I know it's easy to forget to hang it.
Whatever happened with that landscaping company that you talked so much about a couple years ago?
Nothing. There was some response on LinkedIn and Twitter, but VP or someone kind of at a higher level had reached out saying, sorry about this, I'll look into it after the weekend, or, I'll look into it, and they never responded.
I remember now.
So my assumption is they either A, never looked into it, or B, looked into it and didn't care. Which, I don't know, I guess in one sense, it's not so much that they owe me anything. It's not like I want free lawn care.
Mm-hmm.
But the simple response of saying, hey, sorry this happened, we're going to do our best to avoid these situations in the future. Thanks for bringing it to our attention, is good enough.
Yeah.
But I didn't even get that. There were a couple observations I've made lately that I wanted to point out about social media and this whole concept. We've talked about, or I guess I've talked about, my experiences at the gym. And the gym I've been using is 24-Hour Fitness downtown Sacramento. It's not worth your time or money. Anyway, one thing that I've done lately, I've talked to managers or whoever seems to be in charge, and they are kosher to talk to. They're not rude or short, but they also don't take action, so it seems. Well, a couple weeks ago, or not so long ago, a cleaning station was constantly falling apart. Like the paper towel dispenser, the cover was falling off, and the paper towels were jammed. So it was, it was just lame. So one day I went in, the lid was off, so you had to kind of manually figure out how to get paper towels, and there was no place to hang the spray bottle. So it was annoying, but it wasn't like, it was still there, and you could still make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went 2 days later, same paper towel dispenser, still broken. So I'm like, wow, 3 days? And this is a big company, right? You would think they could probably spend $87 and get a new dispenser, right? Or have somebody fix it.
Yeah.
So day 3, still broken. Day 4, still broken. So I started taking a photo every day. I'm like, and I put it on Twitter. I call, this one's day 4, and I tagged 24-hour. Day 5, tag them. Now the spray bottle is broken. So now this cleaning station is just not functional. And with COVID and the last year and a half of living, it's kind of a big deal. People don't want to hang out on machines that haven't been sanitized either by the individual using it or at least doing it yourself. So I took a picture of day 5, tagged them, and put it online. Day 6, I walked into the gym, and somebody is there replacing it.
Wow.
So, in a sense, I'm like, oh, it's about time. Now, nobody ever responded. Actually, that's not fair. I tagged them, and then I tagged my new gym, and I was like, hey, can you guys do better? Because I'm in the market. And both responded. The new gym was like, yeah, come on over. The old gym was like, oh, feel free to talk to management. Well, that doesn't help either. So anyway, there was a part of me that thought, hey, maybe they fixed it on day 6 because they were tired of these photos going public. Maybe not. Maybe they had put in a ticket and it just took a week to get somebody out there to fix it. I don't know.
Right.
But then a couple days go by. I'm back in that gym. And as I walk in, I'm checking in. A manager walks around the corner, or a leader of sorts, and out loud says, "So-and-so, go check the bottles and paper towel dispensers."
So that you could hear
Yeah,
it.
do you guys know who are you following me on Twitter? Like, what? Now, granted, I would like to think it's all because of me.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is. I think it just happens to be a coincidence in this case. But I couldn't help but think about how our use of social media inspires change or helps promote change, because nobody wants to be on blast like that, whether an individual or a company. Sure, some probably don't care, but I imagine nobody likes that.
Totally. Like I said in the beginning, it's an opportunity to communicate. And I don't think it's a bad thing that people can communicate directly with the company through things like Twitter or other social media. And it's just an opportunity to improve, right? They can't have eyes on every single cleaning station, but hey, you're there. And if you let them know, you know what, this deserves some attention, maybe they can put attention on that thing. And so in that respect, it's only a good thing when their customers are their eyes on their product.
Yeah. I think about the plan, right? They probably sat down in a boardroom one day when they were getting ready to reopen, and they probably just said, hey, we're going to add 10 more cleaning stations for a total of 20, and I'm making these numbers up, but let's just presume they did. They added, so we got 20, and then probably said, hey, we need to check these every 4 hours. And they probably thought that was a great plan. And then maybe they didn't realize they were used as much as they are. So when they get feedback that says, hey, 4 hours isn't good enough, let's do it every 2, all that's doing is helping them get better and helping them improve. So it's not like saying they had a terrible plan. It just wasn't good enough in that moment. Right. And one thing that's coming to mind right now, I don't remember details, but I heard on the news not too long ago, I don't know if it's legislation or if it's a particular airline or what it is, but there's talk of some sort of refund or forgiveness, if you will, for an airline that doesn't deliver your bags in a certain period of time, especially when they're an airline that charges you for that service. Right? If you think about FedEx, you pay them to get it somewhere in 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't get it there in 3 days, they usually give you some sort of refund or a partial credit or something, because that was their mistake. They promised 3 days, and they couldn't deliver. So now people are looking at the airline saying, okay, you're charging me $50 for this suitcase, but then my suitcase doesn't make it, or my suitcase doesn't make it on time. What am I paying $50 for? And I love the idea that you can't pay for a service or charge for a service and not follow through, but still expect to keep all the money. Like, that doesn't work in the restaurant industry. That doesn't work in the food, grocery industry. That doesn't work in the car industry. If you sell me a lemon of a car, then you're going to replace it at your expense, not mine. But for some reason, the airlines have gotten away with it for decades. We're going to charge $55, and the suitcase is not going to make it, but we're going to keep your $55. So to me, it's genius that we're moving in the direction of saying, you can't do that. You can't charge me for a service and not deliver. Which, in a sense, is all of this, right? 24 or Starbucks or Delta or whoever you want to pick on, they're charging you for a service or a product, and then it doesn't hold up. Something has to give, and I really think social media has helped us call attention to those infractions or poor practices, if you will.
It's sort of a regulating thing, right? I mean, if their numbers go down, their 5 stars goes to 4, then that's going to affect their business. So they better be keeping those stars up, right? I mean, in that respect, it's a good thing for all of us, even them.
Yeah. It's important to me to see those channels of feedback as opportunities to improve. In a sense, your customer or your client or whatever you want to call them is telling you, hey, I like this brand or I like what you offer, but it's not good enough. Which is another way of saying, I want to give you my money, but I would rather do it if you just tweaked a little bit here and there. And then I'll give it to you freely and gladly.
That puts a lot of power in the consumer's hand, right? And I think a lot of people either don't use that and some people misuse that power, right? And so if it's used correctly, it's a good thing for everybody.
Most certainly true in the world of service and product. But what about rare disease? I mean, think about how social media has helped put even ultra rare disease on the map. If it wasn't for social media, would large companies be working away at helping address the concerns of rare disease? So I guess we can wrap it up with that. Even though social media is powerful with business and service, think about awareness. Think about fundraising. Think about calling attention to 2,000, 10,000, 20,000 people affected by a condition and how that's helped improve the playing field when it comes to research or effort to improve quality of life.
Social media has affected in a positive way, the FA community big time. I mean, just last year in 2020, I think social media really advanced our community. I think I mentioned it in a previous episode, but there's a community like in Lebanon that we didn't even know, or I didn't even know about before. But we found them on social media. We reached out to them and they got involved. And just one more person in a rare disease is an incredible thing to add to the community, not only in fundraising and participation in research, but just personally to know that you're affecting other lives and they're affecting other lives just by supporting each other. It's been an incredible force to reach out to new parts of the FA community, and I'm sure it's like that in all of rare disease communities. Also in fundraising, specifically on Facebook, our fundraising platform connects directly to Facebook, and there are some people that have seen dramatic results just being able to fundraise on Facebook. It's just a couple clicks, right? And some people in our community have seen pretty incredible results.
Okay, right now I'm reminded of Luke Rosen and the story behind KIF1A and his mouse model. I can't remember the episode number off the top of my head, but we'll be sure to link it. His daughter has an ultra rare disease, and I don't remember all the details, but he specifically talked about how his condition needed some mice, and they needed to work on mice models for research, and they didn't have the kind of money needed to fund this sort of research. And I think he made some silly videos or cute videos.
The campaign was called We Need a Mouse.
Yeah, and because of social media, they were able to raise the money and the awareness and the involvement needed to make that happen. And, had that been 20 years ago, before social media, or even before smartphones, how much longer would that have taken? Whether it's Bluetooth or any other technology or just social media, I guess the lesson here today or the principle I personally want to promote is the idea of using social media to enact change in a positive manner. I've learned over the years, I was the guy that went to Yelp or social media immediately because I was pissed or mad or frustrated. And I don't know if that's the best or most fair approach. So I guess I would encourage myself and others to reach out, try, build your case, make your case. But if that's not getting you anywhere, then let's go to social media. Let's submit that review and be done with it. No, don't lose sleep over it. But know that someday somebody's going to read that review, somebody's going to see your experience, and they're going to base their decision of doing business with them or not because of you. And in a sense, that's probably going to help somebody at some level. So keep using social media to make the world a better place.
I like the way you wrapped it up there. So, Sean, let's move on to our thank you notes. We put a little bit of gratitude at the end of each episode, and so who do you want to thank today?
I'm going to say thank you to my CEO of my employer. In a sense, we had a disagreement not so long ago, and I suppose I could have taken that to Yelp or, social media. But instead, I went directly to him, wrote a little letter, and we dialogued. We talked on the phone, and we came to a place of understanding each other's perspectives and finding a mutual ground or a mutual decision that was good for both of us. So I really appreciate his willingness to look at all the different sides of this particular concern and be willing to, meet me halfway and call me out to meet him halfway, and however you want to think of it.
Right.
I'm just grateful that he's very involved in our operations, and he's a very warm, good-hearted person that wants to be better himself, but also wants the company to be better and wants everybody around him to be better. So in a sense, he's just helped me be a better person as well. So I'm saying thank you to the CEO of Nugget Market, Eric Still.
So you mentioned a couple times that you used to be the guy that went straight to social media with rage and, malice. If this was 5 years ago, or I don't know, whenever that change was, do you think the situation would have came about differently or ended differently?
I lean towards saying no, only because I'm employed by them. So I guess I feel like it's a different scenario because there's more skin in the game because it's my employer. Now, had that been an issue that I came across at a restaurant or an airline, then yeah, I probably would have gone straight to social with it. But in this case, there's more need to approach it with a bit of concern.
All right, my thank you goes out to my brother and my dad. I was in Northern California, and we went up to our cabin at Lake Almanor, and when we came back, I realized I left my charger for my power chair up there. And I was about to leave the next day to head to Chicago. And so my dad and my brother got up real early the next day and met and made a little handoff and got my charger back to me. And, sure, they're my dad and my brother. Maybe at some level they have to do something like that, right? But I appreciate the extra effort and the concern for the next leg of my trip.
That's kind of a big deal. You know, you can easily go out and buy a new charger for your phone, but a charger for your power chair, something tells me those aren't easy to come by.
That's a good point. We definitely searched near and far online to be able to buy a new charger, and it's fairly specialized, and we could not get it anywhere, at a store within a day.
Well, thank you, Dad and brother, Mike and Colin. We appreciate your extra effort there. And of course, thank you to you for listening today. We'd encourage you to continue sharing. Be sure to like us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, whatever you listen to. Subscribe. Keep telling your friends and family about us. We look forward to more episodes as Season 6 keeps on rolling. Until next time, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to donate.
Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app.